Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and all in between. This documentary is mainly dedicated to the reign of Alexander the Great, from his birth in 356 BC to his tragic death in 323 BC, when he was just 32 years of age. Even though Alexander the Great reigned for just 13 years, he accomplished a lot. He built one of the biggest and strongest empires in all of history, that stretched over 3 continents. Some of his territory included Egypt, Asia Minor, and Syria. He also conquered Persia in just a few years after Greece had multiple battles with them for hundreds of years. After that, he went to conquer all of Persia, making it into his own land, and having gone 11,000 more miles of land after the conquest. In total, his empire had 2 million square miles of land. Alexander conquered so much land for Greece, he changed the whole landscape in ancient times. But let's start at the beginning. Alexander III was born in the capital of Macedon, Pella. He was born in around July of 356 BC to his parent, Philip II, king of Macedon, and his mother, Olympias of Epirus. There were many rumors surrounding his birth, like he was the son of Zeus, but these were probably told after he came to greatness, to show he was destined to be a legendary conqueror. In Alexander's early life, there are many tales and stories surrounding him. One that I found particularly interesting is when his father, King Philip II, attempted to buy a horse, but refused him out, so he sent off to get a new one. However, Alexander found that it was scared of its own shadow and tamed the horse. When his father saw that, he bought the horse for Alexander and Alexander named it Bucephalus. When Alexander was just 13 years old, he was looking for a tutor and eventually decided Aristotle, that he would rebuild his own hometown, Staturia. Alexander went to a sort of boarding school, that we call it nowadays, with other Macedonian nobles, students like Ptolemy, Nephthys, and Cassander, who would later become his friends and generals. After Alexander turned 16, his tutorship with Aristotle ended due to the fact Philip II waged war on the Thracians, and Alexander was left in charge of the country as regent. Once Philip II got back from this campaign, he sent Alexander to go attack Amphissa due to them working on Apollo's sacred land. Alexander feared other great cities might stop him, so he disguised his campaign as an attack on Illyria. So the Illyrians attacked him, but Alexander and his troops fought them off, and Alexander continued his plan and marched down to the city of Elatea with the help of his father. However, since Elatea was a few days' march distance away from Thebes and Athens, Athens had an alliance with Thebes to stop Alexander and his father, which Thebes agreed to, obviously. And though Philip II tried to stop it, then Philip and Alexander were marching south. The Athens and the Thebes armies blocked the way in the Battle of Chaeronea, which they defeated both armies, with Philip controlling the right wing and Alexander controlling the left. When Philip got home from his campaign, he fell in love with Cleopatra Eurydice, who was a niece of one of his generals. Alexander was both mad and worried due to the fact that if they had a son, he would be the heir instead of him. At the wedding, Alexander got mad and threw a wine bottle at the head of the general. Alexander was chased out of Macedonia with his mother, which he dropped off at her brother, King of Dodona, Alexander I. After that, Alexander sought refuge in Illyria, even though he just defeated them a few years back. They agreed to his terms and treated him as a guest. 6 months later, Alexander went back to Macedonia because a meteor helped settle the family feud. And around October of 336 BC, at the wedding of Alexander I, Olympias' brother, and Philip II's daughter, Philip II was assassinated by a captain of the bodyguards, Pausanias, who was later killed by the pursuers after he tripped and fell. After that, Alexander was named king by the nobles and armies on the spot at the age of 20. After Alexander took the position of king, he executed everyone that could rival him for the crown News of the death of Philip II spread in the revolts around the kingdom in places like Athens and Thebes in flashing tribes. However, Alexander peacefully stopped these uprisings and became commander of the Wardens Portia. Again, there were more uprisings like the Flashings and Thebes, but they were later easily defeated, and Thebes was split up in nearby cities. Next, we have the Greco-Persian War. After Philip II died, and all the revolts were dealt with by Alexander and his army, went to Asia to set war on Persia and to take it over. Compared to his father, Alexander was more eager for war and to fight. After winning a few battles in Asia versus the Persians, like the Battle of Granius and the Siege of Hyrcanius, he arrived at Telmisius, where the Golden Knot was. The Golden Knot was basically where, if you were able to undo it, you would be the next king of Asia. After hearing this, Alexander did. It does not matter how the knot is undone. Hereby proclaim myself King of Asia. After that, he officially acquired the title King of Asia. After a short break, Alexander crossed into Sicily, where he defeated the Persian army and took control of Syria, which he decided how much land he would get to because of his title, King of Asia. After Alexander laid siege to the city of Tyre, he easily captured all the cities en route to Egypt, besides Gaza, where a heavily fortified stronghold was, where Alexander took a severe shoulder wound. After he captured Egypt, he was crowned Pharaoh of Egypt. The Egyptian people saw him as a liberator, even though he was a foreigner, and accepted him as a pharaoh. Even though Alexander was absent most of his reign, he made great reforms to Egypt, where he fixed the temples that the Persians neglected and fixed the taxation system. After he made sacrifices to the Egyptian gods, he was seen as the son of Amun and was referred to as Zeus Amun. Oh yeah! After leaving Egypt, he went to Assyria and Babylonia, where he battled the great king Darius for the second time at the Battle of Gargaria. Well, Darius was defeated again, this was thought to be the final nail in the coffin for Persia. After he was captured, Assyria and Babylonia, he headed to one of the Persia's capitals, Susa, where they captured the treasury. Then Alexander headed to Persipura, where he and his men rested for 5 months. During his stay, a fire broke out and spread through the entire city. Darius, the great king of Persia, was killed by his kinsman Bessas, who named himself successor to the throne before running away into Central Asia for guerrilla warfare with Alexander. Once Alexander arrived at the capital, he buried Darius' body in a funeral next to his predecessors. After years of battle, Alexander finally captured all of Persia. After Persia, Alexander went on to India, where he called a meeting of all the Indian chieftains to submit to him. Some did, but others refused, were promptly defeated after a few years. Once Alexander got home into Persia, some of his generals had misbehaved, and he executed all. In the end, Alexander died in June of 323 BC, after a fever had killed him. Alexander had over 20 battles in his lifespan, yet he did not lose a single one. In less than 13 years, he became one of the most influential people of his time and in all of history. He became Pharaoh, Great King, King of Asia. Also, did what no other Greek could do, beat Persia.